Special song for Jerry Seinfeld. This should really fuck his New Year's up. Seinfeld's girl is 17 and innocent with double D's. He saw those breasts and flipped his lid for a real young busty high school kid.
You think I got canceled? Are you under the impression that I got canceled?
Have I hurt you, Jerry?
Do you know who I am?
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my podcast. My name is Brittany Simon. We do philosophy through pop culture, and we're using real people's lives to learn more about our own. I'm sure we've seen all the videos online of older men talking about dating teenagers, but I seriously want to have a conversation about why it happens. I can't tell you how many clips I have seen of men saying the most outrageous things about the reason they want to date teenagers.
At 75, what's the youngest girl you would date?
Would date? Well, legally 18. And that's the advantage of being old. You can date somebody that's 18 or 88.
To the people who would say, oh, that's weird, you're almost 80 and you'd still want to have fun with a girl who was that young.
Well, I think you would have to be selective and appropriate and be sure that they're knowledgeable of their age and yours.
There are so many reasons people justify having relationships with younger people, and I am curious as to why, because maybe you're like me and you know people in your personal life, siblings, cousin, uncles, somebody in your family or friend group who was that 30-year-old guy hitting on a 17-year-old girl.
No.
Mom. And then you have to ask yourself, like, how did this happen? How did this person I either grew up with or knew my whole life or was related to end up becoming that person?
What's the youngest?
18.
And it isn't just family, friends, coworkers, or people you see on fictional TV shows. It's real celebrities with status. It happens right in front of us. So why does this keep happening and why aren't we doing anything about it? So obviously a big part of it is the patriarchy. I know people can get triggered when they hear the word, but it really is an issue. It raises men and boys thinking that the way they can prove that they're men is to dominate others and or have a very specific relationship with a female.
There goes our last female.
That allows them to feel, quote, more manly.
Again!
Or allows them to feel like they accomplished something as a man by getting this younger person to agree to a relationship with them. And of course, you have the other kind of man who says it's not for his ego, but instead it's because she's so mature for her age.
So I'm 25 years old and working away from home over the summer. One of the girls I work with is 17, but extremely mature for her age.
I want to use two celebrities as an example of the, quote, man who doesn't think he's a predator, but actually just loves her because she's so mature for her age. Jerry Seinfeld is a little dated, but if you are a millennial like I am, you're well aware of who he is. In the early 90s, Jerry Seinfeld was 38 years old and started dating a high schooler named Shoshana who was 17. This was actually pretty scandalous for the time. People did make fun of him for it.
Panties smell just like a rose. Is Seinfeld just like Piscopo? Seducing girls in a limousine while his fans think that he's so damn clean.
But yet, nobody stopped him. From my understanding, the consent laws at the time were 17. Now, for my younger generations, Henry Cavill is the example I want to use because I really liked Henry. I liked him in The Tudors. I liked him in Superman. I liked him in Witcher. And he kind of came across as like a very attractive yet nerdy man that felt like sort of the best of both worlds.
United tops of Smash Bros. Henry Cavill can like stick his tongue down my throat, I guess. Thanks.
Let's talk about what you guys personally geek out about.
I mean, the easy answer is Warhammer 40,000. That is my jam. I have been into it since I was 10.
What's your army at the moment?
Custodes. Yeah.
I'm going Necrons next year.
Necrons? Okay. All right. Cool.
Were you into...
Yes.
Well, when he was 32, he dated a girl named Tara King, who was 19. And though I understand that 19 is legal, it is still a teenager. And it begs the question, why do grown men love to date teenage girls?
You are an amazing person, but you're 17.
Which is the legal age of consent in the state of New Mexico.
Charlotte, I am so sorry.
Don't you dare.
And I'm going to use the word girl here just because it relates to the word teen. I understand that Tara was 19. She's a grown-up. She can vote. But I think when you're past 30 and you're looking at a teenager, it should set an alarm bell off in your head that maybe she's not the one. Maybe she's just a little too young for me. According to People, it says Superman has found his kryptonite. Henry Cavill says that despite being 13 years his girlfriend's senior, he couldn't contain his nerves when he first met college student Tara King. Quote, When I first met my girlfriend, I was super intimidated. I wanted to impress her. I was thinking, don't mess this up, man. The 32-year-old who claimed he's loyal to a fault said he understands that his relationship with the 19-year-old might turn some heads, what he calls a natural reaction. Quote, people say age is just a number. It's actually real and a true sign of someone's maturity. But in this case, she's fantastic. In fact, Cavill is quite used to the age gap. Quote, when I was 19, I was going out with a 32-year-old. I'm not sure that makes it any better, Henry. Now, I didn't find any media with them together or interviews, and I think this is probably on purpose that these grown men are probably not doing interviews with their teenage girlfriends. But these things did happen, and they happened in front of all of us. And I understand that from the girl's perspective, she's probably thinking, oh, this is so cool. This older man thinks I'm so mature. This older celebrity thinks I am someone to pay attention to. She probably, thinks this is all very exciting. But I also think, and this is the part people don't want to take into consideration, that these young girls who often feel picked, years later often feel a deep regret, and they do tend to understand and realize that they were taken advantage of because they themselves eventually turn 30, 32, 35, 37, 38, and looking back realize that they themselves would never look at a teenager. And I obviously understand that I just shared a tidbit from people which claim that Henry himself was 19 dating a 32-year-old. That's inappropriate. As somebody myself who's a queer person who's been with older people, both men and women, looking back, it's obvious to me how inappropriate it was. In one context, sure, I'm a young person figuring myself out, but in another context, there's still older people targeting younger people. And yes, they might not feel malicious or like a predator in the bushes, but they are still forming patterns of picking younger people.
You party with underage girls. You don't see a pattern here?
It's not a pattern.
Do you enjoy having power over women?
I don't even know what that means.
You don't know what it means to have power over women?
This so perfectly reminds me of BoJack Horseman. In this series, BoJack goes back to New Mexico to visit an old friend who now has a 17-year-old child named Penny. In the story, Penny and BoJack have a bond. At first, the bond seems innocent, and then because BoJack is BoJack, it becomes perverted. Everything BoJack touches becomes corrupt. Penny is 17 and makes a move on BoJack, and though he initially rejects her and in some ways looks redeemable, he of course is the same old BoJack and eventually tries to make a move on her. And thank goodness her mother caught them on time, otherwise something definitely would have happened. And this isn't the only time BoJack takes advantage of women and young girls in the show. Now, in this series, BoJack gets to the point where he's trying to sort of redeem himself and openly shares all of the horrible things he's done in his life. Even though he attempts to redeem himself by sharing these stories, the interviewer eventually pins him down, corners him with the truth that he has a pattern of picking young, vulnerable women to abuse. But BoJack stumbles on his words. He fumbles. He's confused.
I have power over anyone. I barely have power over myself.
But you do have power over people.
All these women that you mentioned, I never forced myself.
Not through force, but you understand the power differential.
So I can't be with any woman I might have power over?
He doesn't see himself as a predator. He sees himself as just a guy who had a hard life and a really tough childhood.
I think everything is this nefarious scheme. Most of the bad shit that happens in this world isn't because of wicked plots and machinations. It's just because we're all a bunch of stupid, hungry, horny little goons just grabbing at shit, hoping it'll press that little button in our brain that says, okay, you're happy now. That's not an abuse of power.
Please note, even though Penny had initially made the first move on BoJack, he is still responsible for saying no to her. Not to mention, when I say that people tend to regret, it's not to make an excuse for the behavior, it's to explain how trauma can be delayed. Penny is literally so traumatized from her interaction with BoJack that they show throughout the show scenes of her basically having PTSD from it. And I just want to remind you that regardless of when it happens in time, whether it's current day or 200 years ago or 1,000 years ago, there's no excuse and no explaining away the fact that adults have targeted children since the beginning and they will continue to do it, and we have to stop making excuses for it. A guy who, because of circumstances, brought these young girls into his life, and since they're there, how could he not take this opportunity to be with them? It would be silly if he didn't.
It's not my fault. You poked me. You're supposed to just take a peek after a poke.
Which brings me to this infamous episode of Seinfeld in which Jerry and George, who are in their 30s, ogle the chest of a 15-year-old character. This 15-year-old character is played by Brooke Shields, who at the time was in her 20s when she filmed this scene. But the criticism still stands that the actors and characters are in their 30s ogling the chest of a 15-year-old. And according to the characters, well, they couldn't miss the opportunity.
So who wouldn't look at his daughter's cleavage? She's got a nice cleavage. That's why I posed. Why a pig?
Recently, since I decided to rewatch Seinfeld, and though I've seen it a few times already, for some reason, I don't really have any memory of this particular episode. Maybe it's because of where I'm at in my life, life. I'm on this gender deconstruction journey. I'm so much more progressive than I've ever been. Maybe I'm just now noticing all of these weird, disgusting plot lines in these shows that I used to love so much. Like, we already know the characters on Seinfeld are supposed to be bad people, but there really seems to be no line they're willing to cross. But for some reason, I kind of had this idea that maybe children would be off the table. But obviously, since Jerry Seinfeld himself was dating a child in real life, I guess it's not that weird to have the character at least ogle the chest of a child during the show. I think about the Monica Lewinsky, Bill Clinton situation, where Bill Clinton took advantage of an intern who, yes, at the time thought she was living the dream, only to realize how horrible of a situation she was put into. There was no circumstance or justification for the way that Bill Clinton in any way interacted with an intern.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky.
I was asked questions about my relationship with Monica Lewinsky. While my answers were legally accurate, I did not volunteer information. Indeed, I did have a relationship with Miss Lewinsky that was not appropriate.
I mean, to put it into perspective, Bill Clinton was 49 and Lewinsky was 22.
Lucky green suit back on, which I had had the day before, and I thought, well, maybe he'll recognize me again. And there was an excitement about it. It was fun.
I did this really silly thing. I ran home at lunchtime and I put back on the sage green suit I had been wearing the day before when he paid attention to me. And I thought, well, maybe he'll notice me again. And notice me he did.
And the affair didn't even last a night. It lasted over a year. And when you think about that and take it into consideration, it just gets more egregious and disgusting.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
22 years old, you're the president of the United States. Now, we understand that men in positions of power do take advantage of it, and he was not an exception. Even though people like to say Bill Clinton was a great president, it's obvious he wasn't, because great presidents shouldn't be taking advantage of young women. Politicians aside, because we all know they're corrupt, when we think about celebrities, we tend to fall in love with them in a more parasocial way. Jerry Seinfeld, the funny comedian, Henry Cavill, the dreamboat. But is this a dream? Is this man that funny? Is this man that handsome? If at the end of the day, they're looking at teenagers. Fun fact, Jerry Seinfeld met his now wife, Jessica, when she was 26 and he was 44. She had just gotten married, and within a few months of her marriage to her first husband, she was divorced, and a year later, she was married to Jerry Seinfeld. They've been married ever since. I couldn't find anywhere that it was a confirmed affair. The story goes that she was having a hard time in her marriage, and it had nothing to do with Jerry. While she was leaving her husband, Jerry was there to comfort her, and the rest is history.
You, Jerry Seinfeld, free Palestine! You support the genocide of babies in Gaza! Free
Only
Palestine!
you!
Free Palestine! You, Jerry Seinfeld, you support the genocide of Palestinian children!
But what happens when it's not just a celebrity or a politician, but it's somebody in our family, our friend group? Now, I know it's easy to say, oh, I'll just cut this friend off. But when you grow up with a childhood friend, you've known them for 30 years, and then you grow up, you're with them when you're 10, 15, 20, all of a sudden we're 30, and all of a sudden they're talking about meeting a girl on Roblox. It's a little weird. And you're looking at them like, why would you do this? And a big part of it is obviously stuntedness. Obviously, men are being absolutely miseducated in the world. Their parents are not raising them to be good men. And a big part of that is how the patriarchy forms men and teaches them that a real man gets women.
A lot of people think about guys wrong on how they work. This is how guys work. This is how they've always worked. Most guys at one stage of their life, they're trying to sleep with as many girls as they can. Even your granddad used to be like this. He'd sleep with as many girls as he can, wanting to get with them all, right? And then he meets one, your grandma, and he goes, wow, she is an absolute 10 out of 10. I gotta be with her. And then he lets go of the rest and he's just with her for the rest of his life. That's it. So it's a way a masculine brain works. Full of testosterone, it's normal behavior.
And if they can't get women their own age, they'll go for younger girls just to say to their friends, I get some. But is getting some from a teenager really the goal here? Are we so weak of character that it's better from a teenager than nobody? Is it so shameful to be a virgin or to at least say I'm struggling with dating? Or maybe you should ask yourself how you even got to 30 in the first place and you struggled with dating, and or you never struggled with dating and yet you got so bored with all of your options you thought, you know what would be interesting? A teenager. Because I know for me, when I think about a few of the men in my life over the years that I can think of, a lot of the men who hit their 30s and went for teenagers, they had options. Not every single one of them, but a few of them definitely had a lot of options, and they still wanted kids.
She's just too old. Can't lie.
I'm too. Wait, sorry, what?
How old are you again?
30.
30.
How old are you again?
26.
Now, a big part of it, and I know we can be reductive and just say, oh, they're PDF files. And I think in some cases that just would have been true. But I think more than that, I feel like this could have been slightly preventable in a sense, and or they're so narcissistic and or not in the NPD way, just like high ego way, and or feel so entitled to whatever they want that the way they seek out a thrill is to kind of, ooh, is it legal? Is it not legal? It's the taboo of it all, right?
Love young women. Slayer. Between 21 and 25.
21?
21 and 25.
You're 33.
I'm 33 years old. It's been the best fucking experience.
I think I know why.
The best experience. Like, these women, typically very malleable, right? Very cooperative, extremely cooperative, right?
Kevin Samuels Jr.
Excited. Listen.
For sure.
No, let me tell you, because I'm just being very honest about my experience. Like, they don't have many negative experiences. So they do truly give you grace.
This one bad. This one's real bad. So paternalistic, man. When you describe women as being cooperative or malleable, are you talking about a child or a slave? You can't be talking about somebody you want as your partner.
What I'm trying to focus in on, though, is the amount of selfishness that goes into this decision, because obviously these men aren't thinking about the negative implications of how these women are impacted. There's these men I see on the internet constantly justifying child marriages. And in the United States, thousands of children are married. And we have to remember there are loopholes in the law that allow adult people to interact sexually with children and not have any consequences around it. And by the way, it doesn't just happen to young girls. Young boys are also being targeted.
So you heard about the guy on TikTok who got married when he was 14 or 15 to an abuser. You found me. My name is Chaz, and I got married to a 32-year-old woman when I was only 15 years old. I'm kind of a unicorn. I don't think there's a lot of guys out there who are talking about being married when they were a kid. Most child marriages involve girls, not boys. Currently, there are 38 states that still allow some form of child marriage in the USA. Only 12 states have banned all forms of child marriage. And right now, as I make this video, there are 7 states with ballot measures to ban child marriage entirely. It's just good common sense, right? And yet there are legislators and organizations who oppose banning child marriage. Why? As a 15-year-old child married to a 32-year-old woman, that wasn't a marriage. That was a hostage situation.
The reason I'm focusing in on older men with young girls is because I can use celebrity examples, and it's actually just happening in my own personal life where I'm looking at people I was raised with, looking at people that you sort of start to expect more of, only to realize like, uh-oh, something went severely wrong. So what do we do? Because this isn't just strangers on the internet. This is our community. And if we want a better community, we have to understand how we got here. So here are my thoughts. 1, raised badly. Parents have good intentions, but I don't think they're as in their child's life as they think they are. And a lot of these boys are being raised by red pill content creators like Andrew Tate, who bragged about being in his 20s having sex with a 16-year-old because it was legal.
I'm about 21, and there's a young ting on Facebook, you know.
Stop talking like that. You're not black.
I am as black as they come. You don't hear my singing voice?
You're not. You can't sing.
Little sexy, little fat ass. Oh, everyone get the fuck over it. 16's the legal age of consent in the UK. Grew up in England. What the fuck? Yeah, shut up. Legal. Shut up. He was 21. She was 16. Get the fuck over.
Fucking all these 16-year-old women or 18-year-old women, whatever the law is in America. 18?
It's 18 usually. You get married at 16. I think.
All right, in Romania, 16. Sorry.
They are being raised by these gym bros.
When someone's like, I was traumatized, it's like, were you? Or do you just choose to label it as trauma and then now you fucked up the rest of your life because you call it trauma? When 200 years ago, it was life, if you want to go biology. Rewind 200 years. 40-year-old guy sleeps with a 15-year-old girl. 100% normal. How is it trauma now and not trauma then?
Not true. Still very traumatizing.
I have no work, no money, no food. I have to sell my daughter, he says. I have no other choice. My father has sold me because we don't have bread, rice and flour. He has sold me to an old man. The white-bearded man who claims he's 55 years old comes to collect her. He's bought Parwana for 200,000 Afghanis, just over $2,000 US. Covered up, Parwana whimpers as her mother holds her.
Often the news will highlight stories from Afghanistan as an example, and people will come away thinking, see, this only happens to Muslim people. But it's happening in America, it's happening to Christians, and it happened to people in my own family. I come from an Assyrian Catholic family, and not only was my grandma a minor when she was married, but so were some of my aunties. Child marriages don't belong to one culture or religion. It happens around the world to all people.
I was just a little girl wanting to have a boyfriend or something like that, and my mom
turned it into something way different.
Versus putting the handcuffs on him at 20 years of age, they actually put the handcuffs on me at 11.
When I got married, I had just turned 13. We stood in my living room and in this ugly dress that my mother bought off the internet. And shortly after getting married, she encouraged us to start having kids. And that's why I had my first son when I was 15. It was a way for me to, I think, be dependent on her.
We have a lack of education in this country. It's just so obvious to me that Republicans, conservatives, and MAGA people do tend to be more predatory because they are so uneducated. It's not to say liberals and leftists and people who identify as Democrats aren't also predators. We use Bill Clinton as an example here. It's to say that men who do not deconstruct the patriarchy are more likely to be predatory. And I do believe that is true. You can argue with me in the comment sections if you'd like, but I do believe that if you're more leftist and you're deconstructing the patriarchy, you are less likely to be a predator.
RJ May is facing 10 counts of distribution of child pornography, and investigators say he distributed more than 200 files.
Best-selling author and televangelist Robert Morris is now a convicted offender and sits inside the Osage County Jail, calling the former President Trump's spiritual advisor, quote, a wolf in sheep's clothing.
So my thought process is, considering that all the men I know who have been predatory in terms of their adult relationships with teenagers have mostly been more conservative centristy people, it feels anecdotal but true that these men would have a harder time deconstructing the patriarchy from their lived experience because they have been so trained by it. So their parents aren't really raising them. They're not having real conversations. They're being educated by media and the culture around them, which is patriarchal. And then they feel bad about themselves. They're weak of character. They do want validation from the men around them.
I had a call with somebody on my team. Can I tell you guys something? Now that I look back on it, I really, really wish I never got into like politics. And I feel like that's a cool thing to like talk about. Obviously, it's like, you know, I just kind of like, I know y'all didn't like that era at all, except for the Trump like stream. Obviously, at the end of the day, it was the president. Like, but like now that I look back at it, it's like, damn, like so many people just tie me to it, and now it's just like, fuck, like no matter what, they don't even get to know who I am because they don't like even want to. Oh, he did this stream with Trump. You get what I'm saying? Like, and I really, really understand other people's side, and as I'm getting older, I'm just like seeing like, I just don't think I'll ever care enough again for any other politician ever in the future. Just because it's like, at the end of the day, bro, like humans, we're all humans, you know?
No. Let's not do this. First, he calls it an era. Dude, you were on stream with Trump for like 2 or 3 hours. Like, yeah, that wasn't really an era. Furthermore, it's like, why can't y'all just admit? Why can't you just admit that Donald Trump was not the guy you imagined him to be?
Which is why we as a community, every time we bring a baby into the universe, have to really consider that that whole baby is going to become an adult and it has to be guided in the right direction to treat people with dignity. Babies aren't born with a good sense of good and evil. Though I understand some people really do believe like good and evil is written on the heart, I don't. I think we're animals evolved over time and we're products of our environment. And it's our job as people who have children to make sure and or participate in the raising of children to make sure that we are offering them wisdom. Now, of course, that would require us to be wisdomous, which is very difficult to be wise in a world that mocks you for it. There's sort of a mocking happening right now. It's very Matilda coded, where MAGA is mocking you for being educated. Conservatives are mocking you for being educated. And so this is why I believe that most predatory behavior and most abuse is actually preventable through love, education, consistency, structure, community, all the good things that we all need as an animal species to be better to one another. We need introspection. We need wisdom. You know, I always say on this channel, we do philosophy through pop culture. I don't consider myself a wise person. I consider myself somebody who's wise sometimes, but I would encourage us to aim for wisdom, not because we will be, but because it's better to aim for it than to pretend that it doesn't matter.
What do you want a book for?
To read.
To read? Why would you want to read when you got the television set sitting right in front of you?
This is the world we live in, and that these babies need homes, need community, need structure, need consistency, and we have to be the people offering it to them. The adults, the elders. My channel, my content tends to attract adults, okay? Teenagers do not watch me, and I'm glad for it because I am trying to remind millennials and Gen Xers and adults, we are going to be the elders. And so we have to do something. We can't just do what the boomers did and have them ignore the fact that these child marriages are happening.
Okay, Kathleen Burns. I live in Dyersburg, Tennessee. I work all the time, take care of my baby and the husband, hang out with my buddies. That's about it. I met him about when I was like 13, 14. They lived next door to me and hung out with his family and his friend or his sisters. I don't know, we just kind of started becoming friends and I got attached to him. I had probably a little crush, you know what I'm saying? And he couldn't never keep a girlfriend because they didn't like me being around him. So one thing after another, after a few years, we just kind of ended up together. I got pregnant underage and that was kind of what had us go ahead and get married so I wouldn't send him to jail. A lot of people look down on him for it and stuff. That's kind of why he didn't want to do this at first, you know, but like I told him, I don't care what anybody thinks. I love him, you know. We're like any other marriage couple. We've had our problems. I mean, we split up. I went and stayed with them for a little bit, but we just know we want to live with each other. We want to be with each other, you know what I mean? So we worked through our problems. My mom was against it. She was like, you know, y'all shouldn't have done it. I don't know. I mean, I should have waited. I truly believe that. I should have waited, but things came up. I should have waited on having the baby, you know, because you really do need to be 18 in my opinion. You need to be grown up. You need to have your childhood. I lost all of my childhood. Hello. I do regret, you know, not finishing school, growing up way too fast. You know, that's just stuff you shouldn't do when you're a kid, honestly. I see that all now. I didn't see it then though, so, and you can't change it.
We have to do something and we have to create solutions. We have to work on preventative measures. We have to ask ourselves, how do men grow up and get to 30 plus and then look at teenagers? Why does this happen? And how do we prevent it? And yes, obviously the men doing this also have to participate in their own deconstruction and introspection and extrospection. So obviously the men are held accountable, but it's not just about the men who have already done it because they might just be lost, right? It's about the boys being born today, the children being born every day, raised every day in this culture who need to be protected.
I got like 2 older brothers and shit. So I remember like the older niggas in the neighborhood, they used to come to the crib. Like my mama worked 2 jobs. She'd get off a job and go work in another job. She wouldn't even be home. I mean, my brothers would come straight home from school. We little ass boy. Yeah, they had this little girl and they had a girl, not a little girl. They was grown. My brother was the kid. My oldest brother was a kid. So I'm a kid.
Right.
I'm literally like 5 years old.
You literally did baby.
Yeah, for real. I'm like 5 years old. They ended up doing whatever they was doing. I was copying off the.
You ain't know what you was doing. That's crazy.
You know what I mean? Yeah, sucking on the titties, that type shit.
And she was okay. That's so
like
gross.
5 years old.
And how old was she?
Bitch, R. Kelly me. When I think about it. You said what?
How old was she around?
She was grown. They look like they were grown.
That's so disgusting. No. 17, 18.
So yeah, but I wouldn't call that losing my virginity.
Little boys need to be protected because, you know, it's just as much our responsibility from protecting them as children so they don't grow up to be predators as it is our responsibility to protect them from being targeted by a predator. Now, this might be too much of a it takes a village for you. So even if you're more individualistically minded, you can just think of it as your own responsibility to the children in your direct line of sight, right? Maybe your nieces and nephews, maybe your own children. Maybe you're a teacher and you work at a classroom. Maybe you're a volunteer person and you work with families. Whatever it is, you are still individualistically speaking responsible to the people around you, hopefully, because I want to assume you're a good enough person to want to prevent teenagers from interacting with these grown men. Now, I understand everybody comes from a different part of the world and people think, oh, this is just cultural. I saw this video on the internet of this little girl having a realization that there was an age gap relationship in the family. And she literally says like, oh my God, you were a victim.
No, she was a victim.
And then as a response to her, the person in the background says, oh, that wasn't a thing then.
No.
She was a victim.
That didn't exist. Always been a thing and will always be a thing. At any point in history, including my own family lineage, any child marriage that took place, any child relationship that took place, abuse. And the fact that we are downplaying it because of culture, I get it. That's how I was raised. I was raised to downplay the child marriages in my family lineage because that was the culture. There are so many examples in my own family lineage of these dynamics, and it is so frustrating for people to just downplay it because they're so afraid of what it could mean for the people they have relationships with in the family. So what do we do when a loved one is in this position and we don't want to let them go? You can work with them in therapy, be by their side, encourage them, make sure they seek rehabilitation, make sure they seek accountability, have it reflect in their life, and then honestly, talk to the victims. Talk to those people who are married off. Ask them how do they feel about it. And, you know, I understand that some of them might be like, we were married for 50 years. It doesn't matter. We're in love. Who cares? And I think for most human beings, because we are evolved animals on a planet, it's going to feel that way for them. It's going to feel for a lot of our ancestors, for a lot of our aunties and uncles, for a lot of our family members, like not that big of a deal that they were married off at 12, 13, 14 to 18, 19, 20, 40-year-olds, right? They're just gonna tell themselves it's not that big of a deal. And maybe with 8 billion people on the planet, one of them that's true for. But generally speaking, we obviously have a problem in the world and people are obviously suffering more than not. We are suffering. And even though we universally suffer, we always want to suffer wisely versus unwisely. And it's just so much unwise suffering comes from pairing up adults with children. And I know people are saying she was 16, 17. That's basically an adult. I don't care if she was 18 or 19, which is why I used Henry Cavill as an example. Henry Cavill was 32 and she was 19. It doesn't matter. He was over 30 and she was a teenager. We need to have larger conversations about preventing these types of relationships because there's no reason to have them. They didn't even end up together. They broke up. And even if they had ended up together, is it even a safe enough place for that person to admit that they had feelings of negativity towards that unionship without throwing the baby out with the bathwater? So when we talk about accountability, it's about having an embodied experience that I know what I did was wrong and my life is going to reflect that acknowledgement. It doesn't mean having the life you had before. Sometimes it means going your own way. Sometimes it means for the victim who is married off early, admitting to themselves that I didn't have the life I wanted, that I dedicated my life to my kids and my family, and I never got to do what I wanted in life, right? Because that's often what ends up happening.
I got married to my rapist, the guy that raped me. Actually, my mother saw fit for me to marry him to make the situation of me getting pregnant, I can say, to make it look better overall. He was 20 and I was 11. Yeah. 16, I had 6 children. What do I do? No finances. I have to depend on this man that I married. I smile from the outside, but the inside is crying.
But I am concerned that we are not paying attention to the details here, especially with this administration, with everything happening under this administration. Trust me when I say male predators are going to be protected time and time again, as they always have been, but it's going to get worse because it already has gotten worse.
Donald Trump loves a beauty pageant. And by his own admission, he was no stranger backstage while owning parts of 3 different pageants for nearly 2 decades.
They're standing there with no clue. Is everybody okay? And you see these incredible looking women. And so I sort of get away with things like that.
In 2001, Tasha Dixon was Miss Arizona, competing in the Miss USA pageant. She experienced this kind of awkward moment firsthand.
Our first introduction to him was when we were at the dress rehearsal and half naked changing into our bikinis.
Dixon was 18 at the time and says watching Trump storm into a dressing room was shocking.
To have the owner come waltzing in when we're naked or half naked in a very physically vulnerable position, and then to have the pressure of the the people that work for him telling us to go fawn all over him, go walk up to him, talk to him, get his attention. Who do you complain to? He owns the pageant.
This is how the world works, but we have to be diligent, we have to be optimistic, and we have to keep trying because it matters. It did matter. We've seen it matter. We've seen people be held accountable, and more than that, we've seen victims vindicated.
Giselle Pellico is applauded and thanked by supporters every day. She gave up her right to anonymity in order to throw a spotlight on attitudes to rape in France. Her former husband, Dominique Pellico, has admitted secretly lacing her food with anxiety and sleeping pills and then inviting strangers to rape her while she was unconscious. Over the space of 9 years, he advertised his wife on an online forum called Without Her Knowledge. 50 men aged 26 to 74 are on trial for rape. Videos Dominique Pellico made of the attacks were found when he was arrested for filming up women's skirts in a supermarket. Until that point, Giselle Pellico said she trusted him entirely.
We want to help victims feel vindicated.
Je pense également à mes petits-enfants, parce qu'ils sont l'avenir, et c'est aussi pour eux que j'ai mené ce combat, ainsi qu'à mes belles-filles, Aurore et Céline. Je pense aussi à toutes les autres familles touchées par ce drame. Je pense enfin aux victimes non reconnues, dont les histoires demeurent souvent dans l'ombre. Je veux que vous sachiez que nous partageons le même combat. Je souhaite exprimer ma gratitude la plus profonde à toutes les personnes qui m'ont soutenue tout au long de cette épreuve. Vos témoignages m'ont bouleversée et j'y ai puisé la force de revenir chaque jour pour affronter ces longues journées d'audience.
We want to hold predators accountable, and we want to work on rehabilitation and accountability. We want to bring society up by deconstructing how this came to be, and there is so much trauma at play, so much family legacy at play, so much like shh, don't talk about it at play. We got to talk about it. We have to be uncomfortable. I know I covered on stream a while back Chelsea Fagan's concept around everybody wants a village, but nobody wants to be a villager. The dilemma in that video I found is that Chelsea kept saying boomers were really great at having a village, but I would argue boomers were great at having the illusion of an image because the predators were allowed at the table. Yes, millennials are worse at having a village, but it's kind of hard to make a village with everybody who's in their 30s wanting to date teenagers or people who say it's not that big of a deal. We're living in a world where people are fans of Andrew Tate, right? Like we have to be more realistic with the reality that it's really hard to build a village, especially an intimately close one, with people that are gross. And so, you know, where is the line in the sand? Where's our open with boundaries, and how do we make the world a better place without like coming at the expense, right, of our values? Because I do think a better world coincides with, you know, informed consent being a part of those values. Can you imagine yourself at 35 dating a teenager? Like, could you even, I can't even imagine it. So what's the difference between people who can imagine it, people who dream about it, people who want it, and people who are like, oh, no. Because it wasn't just that we're good people and they're bad people. We were probably raised significantly different, and society probably significantly treated us differently. We have different tools. I don't think men are born inherently bad, and I don't think women are born inherently good. I think it's all of us together forming one another, building each other up or down, and holding ourselves accountable or not. We all have different values. We all bring different things to the table, and we need to come together to build a village that keeps young people safe from older people that don't have that in the forefront of their mind. So this comes down to my last point that I think is so important. Yes, young people might crush on you. Yes, young people might be interested in you. It is still your obligation as the older person to protect that younger person and to say, it's okay you have a crush on me. It's not okay to act on it. Because at the end of the day, like, I'm probably not your high compatibility partner. There's probably somebody more suited for you who's near your age, who you will be very happy with. And or you will end up being an adult in their 30s and 40s in an age gap relationship that's more appropriate. But right now, you are a teenager. And right now, though it feels very normal for you to have a crush on me, it would be very unsafe for me to have a crush on you. For your sake and for mine, but mostly for your sake. The idea is to raise adults who really think about teenagers as something valuable to protect. Right now, we live in a culture, at least I grew up in a culture, in which teenagers are held more responsible than the adults they interact with. What was she wearing? How was she ruining his life? Was she targeting him? The reality is that we look at teenagers as if they have more power than the adults in their life. I had 2 teacher predators on campus in my public high school. I went to public high school from 15 to 17. And when I was there, 2 teachers were found to have been engaging with the kids on campus, the girls on campus. And I heard parents say, I wonder what she did. I heard parents say, oh, I wonder if the girl started it. I even heard the victims say that they blamed themselves over these grown men who interacted with them. All of this to say, it's not just Jerry Seinfeld. It's not just Henry Cavill. It's not just Bill Clinton. It's not just famous people on your television. It's in your families. It's your friend groups. It's your communities. And again, because we believe in rehabilitation and holding people accountable, we want to get people help, but we can't get them help unless they admit they're doing something wrong. And I know they're probably worried about saying they're doing something wrong, so they double down and show up on TikTok interviews bragging about having sex with teenagers as long as they're legal, which is why the next step of protecting kids is vetting the people you're dating. So if you are dating men, if you're a person who dates men, make sure you vet these men before you have babies with them, before you bring them around your friends, before they interact with your community. Ask them how young would you date? Ask them who they're fans of on the internet. Ask them what their thoughts are about teenagers getting married. Give them examples of news stories of young girls being taken advantage by men, and ask them what do they think about it. Because way too many men out here are way too relaxed about their friends dating girls who are too young or are open themselves to doing it. So you need to do your due diligence as people who date men, raise men, interact with men. And the boys in my community, the men in my community, you need to hold your friends accountable.
25 years old. One of the girls I work with is 17. It was totally unexpected and I wasn't sure if I was comfortable with the age gap. Saying this, we did kiss and do things with our hands, and she's told me sober that she wants me. I've thought about it since, and I'd love to do it again with her and maybe take it further next time. Of course, she is legally of age. Mate, whenever you have to write that in an email, you're in deep motherfucking water. Of course, she is legally of age, but it does feel quite weird saying I've shagged a 17-year-old, although she is fit as fuck. Do I do the deed knowing that I leave to go home soon anyway, or does that make me a bit of a nonce? Love the podcast. Keep up the work. Anonymous, he's 25.
No.
Can we get a ruling? Can we get a ruling?
No.
You need to tell your buddies, absolutely not. And you need to put the foot down when they say, hey, how about this girl? She's 17, but it's legal. Absolutely not. It doesn't matter if you're more of a solitary person who only has friend groups online, or if you're more of a physical, extroverted personality. You have a responsibility to holding the people in your life accountable. Remember, it's very hard to be a good person for exactly these reasons, because the person you grew up with, the guy you went to school with, the guy who was your best mate at your wedding, that's the same guy you're going to have to put your foot down with. The brother you grew up with, the little boy whose diaper you changed and watched him grow into a man, that's the brother you're going to have to hold accountable. The man you married, who admits to you that they had a past, that's the man you're going to have to put your foot down with. The man who is your father or the man who is your grandfather. Putting your foot down and saying, hold on, how old was grandma? Hold on, how old was mom when you met?
There's a 5-year difference. When we started dating, I was 21, mom was 16, which was pretty shocking back then.
Yeah.
But she walked in.
Wait. Go back. You were 21, she was 16?
Right.
Yeah.
I was at UCLA, mom was still in high school.
It's a little rough.
Jailbait.
Literally jailbait.
Do you know how hard it was to wait 2 years to... Anyway.
Oh, God, this is not appropriate.
Next question.
Mom walks in, beautiful. She was like the queen bee, and all these high school boys were buzzing around her when she came in. So we made eye contact, and I looked over and I gave her the, come over here, honey.
So it's not something that just happened in the past. It's not something that, doesn't exist now. It exists now. It's normalized now. And it's not just guys on the internet or random strangers or celebrities. It's people in our real life. And again, one last thought. This isn't about abandoning our family. This is about saving our families. I really know from personal experience that everyone is so terrified to face themselves. But if you face yourself now, no one will ever have to deal with this in the future, hopefully, because we'll do the work now. We'll take one for the team, we'll hold ourselves accountable, and we'll raise our kids better and safer. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'd like to hear your thoughts in the sections down below, and I'll see you for the next one. Bye-bye.